5 years ago, it was the most popular game in the world, but today, it ranks 200th below an engineering game and a butt-clicking game. I'm talking about Among Us. So in loving memory of this game, I'm gonna reimagine it as a horror game. But instead of just copying Among Us completely, I'm gonna make a completely unique horror game inspired by just one feature from this game: venting. So I put together a starting area and made this vent. It's beautiful, as you can see, and wrote some code so that you could crawl through the vent. Obviously, this is just a prototype area that we'll clean up later, but even with just this setup, I could tell that being able to look through the vent like this was going to be perfect for a horror game. Made me feel like Michael Scott, but obviously we can't just have this room and this tiny little vent, so I expanded the map and added this guy, and he doesn't do anything. Loser. But after making the map, I realized I kinda messed up like everything. The whole idea of the game is that you're safe in the vent but have to go into the rooms with enemies to collect stuff. But because of the way I designed the map, you could just run from one vent to another and barely had to spend any time in the room, which meant the game wouldn't really be that scary. Obviously, this isn't what we want, and my game design brain came up with two solutions. Number one, add an oxygen tank. When you're in a vent, your oxygen goes down and it'll only go up when you enter a room. So you're forced to keep moving and it stays fast-paced and exciting. And my other idea? Bigger room. Bigger room, better than smaller room. I added both of the ideas, but I ended up scrapping the oxygen one later on because it just didn't work for the game. I know making a bigger room is so obvious and simple, but that doesn't mean it's a bad idea. So I remade the map and added decorations until we had the starting room, storage, cafeteria, this room, I didn't really come up with a name for it, and the potty. Each room has doors, but they're locked, so the only way to get around is by crawling through vents. They are marked with a bright red light, you cannot miss it. Each room also has its own enemies, which still do nothing. But the only way to get the enemy to work is to first remake the player. So right now, the player is this pill shape, which normally is fine for a first-person game. It just means that when you look down, you can't see your legs. But this won't work for my game. This time, the player needs a body. And doing this will make the enemy smarter. Here's how. If we create a separate body part for the player's arms, legs, chest, and head, we can make the enemy draw a line to each of these parts. And then it will know if it can see that part or if it's blocked. Then it calculates a percentage of how visible the player is, and it will let us create a more advanced enemy. So I added this guy and gave him some animations which worked perfectly, and also added the hitboxes that we need. And after a bunch of messing with it, he can't see you if you're partially visible, but if you stand out in the open, obviously he'll run right up to you. It is kinda basic, but it gets the job done. I also added some cool sound effects, but it is definitely possible that my computer's audio was muted in OBS for the last 2 weeks, so I'll play it at the end of the video so you can see the final product. Anyway, to add more depth to the game, I thought it would be cool if some of the vents were locked, but you could open it with a crowbar. So I started making it and struggled a lot. It seems easy, but I had no idea how to make this shape. After a while, I got it done, made textures, and made it so you could pick it up in game and view it in your inventory. Oh, you want to know what the inventory looks like? Well, I haven't added it. I wanted to make something unique and hopefully better than last time, but I don't know if I can do it. Among Us doesn't have an inventory system, so I'm gonna have to think for myself. And I'm just kidding, I would never do that. The Forest has this really cool inventory system where you can see all your items spread out on the ground. So, I stole the idea. I created a similar area in my game where hovering over the item will bring it into focus and describe its use, like crowbar, used for opening locked vents. But in terms of locked vents, there are no locked vents. So I wrote some code for this, and if you try to open a locked vent without a crowbar, it's locked. Wow, who could have seen this coming? But once you collect it, you'll be able to get through this and unlock new areas on the map. Moving on, I want to add a code that you can collect to unlock something. What does it unlock? I don't know yet. So I made this paper that you could collect and set it up with the inventory and everything. And I also put these crates around the map, which had a random chance of giving you an item. Nothing! So there was more than one way to get these things. Anyway, my idea is that you can enter this code somewhere to win the game. And where do you enter it? I added another note that you can find that says, hit the red button under the desk in the control room and you can call for help. So I'm thinking if you do this, the game will end. But in terms of red buttons and control rooms, We have no red buttons in control rooms. So I built a new room and put the button on top of the desk. And I know the note says it's supposed to go under the desk. And before you come up with some crazy lore conspiracy like the guy in the note is lying to you, let me just tell you it's because it looked weird under the table and I forgot to change the note. Anyway, once you get the crowbar, you can access this room and hit the button and it'll prompt you for a code. Once you go out and find it, you can type it in and you win. I mean, kinda. It's just like a black screen right now. So I made a small ending sequence and a main menu where you go after the game. I named it Onboarded, which maybe isn't the best name, but it's definitely better than what I had planned before. Also, check this out. I made it so that when you move your mouse around in the main menu, the background moves with it. Pretty cool, right? Also completely useless. While I was at it, I made a settings menu, so if you didn't want to play in absolute pitch black, you could adjust the settings. And for anyone wondering, this is what the lowest brightness looks like. Have fun beating it like this. So we have a basic gameplay loop, but the game is still not done. It's pretty difficult for the player to know when it's safe to exit the vent, so I thought I'd add security cameras that you can view from anywhere. You know, like Among Us. Man, I love that game. Even though the camera worked like this, I spent like an hour messing with it, adding this recording button, the name of the room, and a transition when you switch between them. Completely useless, but kinda cool. So the game works on a pretty basic level now. You can go through vents, collect items, and have to avoid enemies. So next, I added a bunch of small but still really nice details. Like changing the text so instead of showing up all at once, it types one letter at a time. Adding arrows above anything you can collect so they stand out more. I added an intro sequence where there's an alarm going off in your room because there's freaky aliens everywhere. I made some of the enemies patrol around and other ones stand still. And finally, I made an animation for going in and out of the vent, which turned out cool in the end, but while I was working on it, created one of the creepiest bugs I've ever seen. This helped, but to make it better, I rearranged the entire map so it would kind of teach you how to play. Like, the game never tells you that you're supposed to crawl through the vents, but instead of just directly telling the player, I made it so the starting room is tiny, has one locked door and one giant vent with a glowing red light on it, so you'll figure it out. The player also needs to know that it's a stealth game and they're supposed to find a button. So in the next room, I made an enemy facing the wrong way that you have to sneak behind, and I made the note painfully obvious, like if you miss this, you kinda deserve to be confused. And I tried to keep this thinking for the rest of the map. I'm pretty sure this is just considered basic level design, but it made the game better. But just to make sure, I also added these trigger boxes that when you go through them will act as a tutorial for your first time playing. But then I realized the enemies in the game can't actually catch you. I always leave this to the last second for some reason. So I took this hit animation and added a camera in front of it and made it play whenever the enemy gets close to you. And with sounds and everything together, it turned out pretty cool. Finally, I composed a beautiful soundtrack. Okay, like decent soundtrack. And with that, the game is done. But before me and my friends play it, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Cody. If you want to make a game, there are tons of skills that you're gonna have to learn. But what always seems to stop people from getting started is learning how to code. Well, today's sponsor, Cody, aims to fix that. It's a website which offers practical coding lessons in a quick, bite-sized format, so you can still learn even with the modern-day attention span. If you head over to their website, you can take their quiz and find out what course is best for you. I personally use Unity to make my games, so if you want to do that, you should learn C#. But besides just learning the language, they also have other courses on specific projects, like learning to make a video player, or courses on programming fundamentals, like object-oriented programming in general, which is something that's really important to learn. They make learning fun by offering challenges, rewards, and streaks to help keep you motivated. Plus, they have an AI tutor which tells you why you're wrong instead of just giving you the right answer. Best of all, if you don't want to spend money, you get a certain amount of lessons for free every day, so you can still work through the courses. So if you're interested, head over to cody.tech or click the link in the description. So I sent the game to my friends, and they loved it.
Fuck! He's right there. Alright, so you respawn pretty close to there, so what theoretically happens if I just go... Oh! Fuck! What? Oh my...
So, it's safe to say they were pretty bad. But my favorite clip out of all of these is this one where my friend is running for his life, but when he sees a loot crate he can open, he does the craziest double take, turns around, and dies.
Oh!
But now, it's my turn. What's up guys, welcome to the best game ever made. Today I'm going to be playing Onboarded, an absolute masterpiece made by me. Wow, it looks like there's an alarm going off in my room. I wonder what that's about. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty hard to commentate because I know everything about the game and I also just told you about it for the last 10 minutes. And here's the first vent you go through. There's like 2 ways to go and that brings us to the cafeteria. I'm gonna have to go in here because this is where the crowbar is. I forget exactly where. Oh, here it is. Oh god, he's gonna see me. Fuck, pick it up. Alright, nice. So now we just need the code, which is right here. The animals are so loud in this game. I don't really know what to call them, but they make... Oh, I know I made the game, but I kind of forget if they ever come back here. But I started right there. All I have to do is get to that vent over there. And since I have everything, that's pretty much the whole game. Alright, I'm just running. There we go. Here's our big red button. And I win at my own game. So if you want to play the greatest game ever made, it's in the description. And if you want to join the greatest Discord server ever made, it's also in the description. Thanks so much for watching and subscribe to see what masterpiece I create next.